Well, hi y'all, is this working? Hey, this is Freeze Cracked again, and it's cold today. So, goofing around, I thought, well, I could get out my quote-unquote keeper cases and show you some stuff because it's like a progression of my napping. And I've actually only been napping for 3 years, and I haven't switched stuff around a lot in my keeper cases over that time frame, just because I tried to keep them kind of like they were at a particular point in time to sort of show you. So anyway, I thought I would do that a little bit. I don't know if you find it interesting or not, but that's all I'm really going to be talking about. This case here is all Texas material, and this is the best of the worst from like the first year or whatever. But it's interesting because what I wanted to do was have a case that was colorful, that had a number of different sorts or types of points and a number of different sorts of material, and have it all be Texas material. So I did do that, and I achieved that, and I thought it was kind of cool. But just some things that are a little bit interesting in it. One of the things I think is interesting is like this white point right there, clear chalcedony looking thing. That's actually petrified wood. And so there are some filled in areas inside petrified wood where it's so replaced by mineral that there's no wood grain or anything in it. On the opposite side of that extreme is that piece right there is petrified wood that has a lot of wood grain in it, and it's raw. I found it in a river. Just go down the rivers, hitting them with boppers and pieces of petrified wood, hitting them and see what, concoily fractures. This over here is actually petrified palm wood, which is, palm wood is more desirable than some of the other petrified woods. That's another piece of petrified wood I found. But anyway, there's a number of different things. This little point here, I don't know if I can show it to you in this light, but it's got a clear, well, it's not going to work without backlighting, but it's got a clear chalcedony streak where like it cracked and healed. It's pretty cool. But anyway, some of this stuff is from different parts of Texas. This right here is opalized wood, and that stuff doesn't work well at all. But there's a couple of full-length fluted points, and there's a couple of Clovis points, and there's some deep notch points. And here was my attempt at doing a Pandel type point with a twist in it. And I thought, for the fact that I hadn't done it much, that kind of came out semi-okay. So anyway, that's that case. I can't see anything else in here that's real interesting to mention or talk about. So I'll close this one and bring another one over. And this was also like from the first year, but this is a totally different concept, really. What I was attempting to do here, well, you can't see it all real super, but what I was attempting to do here was use show a bunch of different kinds of material. And so what you have is you have like slag glass. That's all slag glass. I had a friend whose father was sort of a rock hound, and he had a bunch of slag glass, and he gave it to me and wanted to see what I could make out of it. Well, one thing I would tell you about working slag glass is a lot of it is really pretty, but kind of by definition, a lot of that stuff was not heat treated and tempered properly at the end of the time in which it was melted, and so therefore it's got a lot of internal stresses, and some of that stuff will just blow up on its own while it's just sitting around from the internal stresses. So your odds of completing points and having them last a long time aren't as good if you're working, just regular old slag glass that was just, waste out of a kiln batch or whatever. So anyway, there's some obsidian in here. This is kind of cool. This is an old black glass bottle, like the real old bottles. I don't know if you can see it, but I used the bottom of the bottle, and it still got the pontil little scar in there where the bottle was blown, and it's actually sort of greenish in the light, but it was pretty black when it was thick, so that's kind of cool. There's a couple of pieces of Rainy Buttes, which is an interesting fossil wood replaced with iron, silicified iron kind of content, real heavy, real dense, real weird to work, and looks old the second you hit it. So it's a fairly intriguing material. There's a couple of things in here, I think. This one and that one's just old Clorox bottles, you know, the old brown Clorox bottles from a long time ago that you find around creeks or rivers or wherever. There is some jasper type things. There's a number of pieces of nabaculite from Arkansas. One piece of Montana agate that I heated in a turkey roaster, actually. There's quartz crystal, and that stuff is a nightmare to work. There's that old permanganite type purplish bottle glass, just an antique bottle. Piece of rhyolite. That's just a piece of like a metaquartzite or something that I found about 4 hours south of where I live. That's rhyolite. This is from California. I got from Tony Swords. There's some basalt. Let's see, what else is it? Flint River. What all else is in here? I don't even know. That's agatized or silicified palm wood. So anyway, that's about enough said about this frame. You have to excuse Riker mounts, but, you know, I've always used Riker mounts for other things, so fossils and different stuff, so I sort of started using them for some of this too. I can get that where you can see it. At any rate, so this stuff was some stuff, and it's also some unusual materials, but it also was some fluting things when I first got into fluting. You know, the first year, man, I wanted to flute stuff. And so I got into it. I built a Solberger. I did some freehand fluting, built a Solberger and did some of that. Tried some indirect and did a little, just did different things. But anyway, that's rhyolite. These 4 points are, well, wait a minute, what is this one? I guess that one is too. These 5 points all the way down this row are citronelle gravel from Louisiana. Flint Ridge, Burlington, that's just a Texas rock that I heated, I think. That's Keokuk. These two things are pretty interesting. That stuff is really weird to work. It's tektites, you know, it's meteorites hit the ground and blow glass up, molten glass up into the air, and it solidifies. Those things are really weird because some of them you can actually flake and some of them you can't. Some of them are super hard and almost seem to have a like an onion layer kind of hard to where you can't, they don't concoidally fracture really, but they're actually very tempered. It's very hard to work it, but anyway, I did it. This was a broken highway marker button that I found in the aftermath of a hurricane down towards the coast where stuff was torn up so bad. This is a piece of a toilet tank that I found in a creek one time when walking and looking for stuff. This is kind of interesting there. That's a piece of fossil bone. It's Pleistocene fossil bone. And it's interesting in that it's got sort of a cortical layer on one side, and you can still see the remnants of the cancellous layer, the spongy bone inside on the other side, like a piece of limb bone, like a leg bone or something. But it's real dense. It's well replaced with mineral, or it wouldn't have flaked. Flint Ridge, maybe Flint Ridge. That's like, I think a lot of those are Flint Ridge actually. That's High Ridge Burlington. That's Flint Nethers, Flint Ridge. That's probably Kinley Rock, and that's Texas root beer. That's Petrified Palm Wood. So anyway, I'm trying to sneeze. I hope I got that on camera. This is kind of interesting. Tom Dodge out of Arizona, you know, has some basalt, and from northern Arizona, I got this basalt from him. But anyway, it had a natural shape on one side. I just decided to keep it. So that was an interesting flint knapping session, trying to keep the flat edge on one side and just keep turning the edge back towards this face to just keep flaking that face and get it get the convexity. So anyway, that was kind of interesting. All right, so we'll put that up. You'll have to excuse me for being slow. I'm trying to get all this stuff situated somehow around here. I'm never planning on being a professional videographer, so don't be, you know, frantically calling Hollywood or anything like that. Tell them to shut the freeways or whatever. Okay, so anyway, we're at 11 minutes. I haven't done too horribly. I don't know exactly what I was doing when I made this frame, but this was probably a year ago or a year and a half ago, where I had gotten somewhat better. I actually didn't show you, but I should have showed you the thickness of some of the stuff in those other 2 frames, or 3 frames. Stuff was really thick. The average was probably, you know, 4:1, maybe, or something, I don't know, not good. So here, what you see here is I was getting better, and the stuff is doing better, and most all of this stuff would be at the high end of 4:1 up to, you know, 6:1 or whatever. I'm not gonna lie and be saying it's all 8:1 and stuff, because it isn't. You know, when you start getting up into the higher numbers, the stuff looks flat, and you can see convexity in almost all of this. So it's not super thin, but on the other hand, this stuff is really actually, a lot of it would be considered fairly usable. But I had an issue when I was doing this stuff. Let's see, I don't know if you care what all this stuff is. Most of this is Texas. I'm trying to see if there's anything in here that isn't Texas. I don't see it. I think this is another one where I did it all Texas. A couple of these things were found by me, rocks found by me, and some of it was probably rocks I got from other people. But I'm seeing like, you know, Georgetown. Georgetown turns gray when it dries out and oxidizes. So I'm seeing that, but I'm also there's quite a bit of these that are either the lighter or the darker Pedernales River area, and there's some, you know, that's root beer. There's a Kinley rock one or two. That was a pretty piece of Kinley rock. A lot of stuff just changes colors though, so after you nap it. So, you know, take your pictures when you nap the stuff. All right, but anyway, what I was saying is my perspective was kind of off, and fortunately I finally got, and it still is, but I got straightened out a little bit by another napper that basically, you know, told me, hey, you know, all your stuff is real wide, and it doesn't look Texasy with some of the contours, the finished points and stuff. So the flaking on some of this stuff is pretty good, although there's still a whole lot of a lot of this was before I was doing it as an indirect, so you have a lot of pressure flake scars and stuff across it, much more so than there are now. So the flake pattern, I was looking for quality, but not really very original or anything like that. So anyway, enough said. I think that was actually an outside flake from that one that I said before had the chalcedony line through it. It's really cool when you hold it up to the light. Looks like it's broke, hanging in the air. I think rather than do 2 videos on this, I'm just going to go ahead and run this one longer because I don't think it's going to be hugely long, and it doesn't really need to be a 2 video set. I've run longer on some of my other ones. This is more, actually I haven't put anything in any of my cases recently, but like since last fall or something, but this is probably last year. I mean, this is not old stuff per se. It's not my early stuff. And I'm not really sure why I got the mix in here. I did. I think I was going to take these things to nap-ins, and I wanted to have kind of a representative look. So I try to have some different point styles a little bit, and some different kinds of materials. Throw in, you know, a couple of pieces of obsidian and this next case I'm going to show you and stuff. But at any rate, so I've got some Knife River, a couple of Knife River pieces in here. There's flint, dang it, you know what that is. Coastal Plains, Flint River. Anyway, that other thing I said was Flint River in another case I think was actually Fort Payne. I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't even know why I'm doing these things. But anyway, some of these things you're getting into where I started using the indirect on some of them, and some of this material is very, very hard, and some of it was actually pretty decent. I try and do things like I try and put some bevels on some stuff occasionally, and that's oblique flaked and beveled, and try and get really sharp edges sometimes. So I'll practice edge work, I'll practice beveling, I'll practice different things. This is what I consider to be one of my best points because of the rock. That rock that I worked at from was not much bigger than that point, and it was thick. And it was just a cobble that I had found, and it was so gorgeous inside. The rock was so beautiful and quality in the material that a second I saw the inside of the rock, I kind of freaked out. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to ruin this rock because it's so cool. But it was a little bitty and very thick, and so I lucked out, came out good on that one. Some of these things were, you know, I pride myself based on the nature of the rock, what the rock was like. Some of them, like this rock, that rock was hard as nails. I could not do the notching with copper, period. I had to do the entire notching with steel. And you can't tell that from looking at it, but that rock was a beast. And so sometimes there's that kind of stuff about it. Some rocks are just interesting looking. I don't know. This rock was really interesting, and I don't think you probably can see it, but it had almost like oolitic. It had like a little nest of eggs in it right there. It looked like oolitic material or something right in one spot. It was very weird. So anyway, and some of my stuff is just kind of fabrications and what it is. Like, okay, here this is kind of a Clovis Dalton or something. I don't know what it is. I think that might be a piece of Marty rock. I like the rock. This thing, I was so proud of this because of the circumstances. What happened was Jay King come up and dropped a half nodule of this Sedalia beside me, and it was full of concrete in the middle. And I was trying to, and so like 4 guys were sitting around watching me, none of them were napping. And so we're like, oh, what can you make out of this? Well, the pressure's on right there, you know. And so basically what I did was I started working it down and trying to get it thin. I got it flat, and I was trying to work it thin. Well, at some point in there, I hit it, and the thing split into quarter nodules because it split right in the middle from along that concrete. So I think it had a crack start with, I can't remember. So then I had a quarter nodule to work with. Well, and I don't have it here. I should have gotten it and brought it in to show you, but that ended up, it took me a long time. I worked that really slow because I didn't want to break it in front of all those guys sitting there just looking at me. And so it came out kind of cool, and it's got the little snake bite on it. So it's my snake bite tang knife, and I thought it was kind of cool. So that one, you know, if I can nap good with, well, it's not like it's so great napped and it's not thin or anything, but if I can salvage that particular rock in front of a bunch of people just sitting there all watching me and critiquing me, so I wouldn't have done it that way. Oh, I would have done that, what you just did in 20 hits with about 3, and they were terrible. They really were. They were giving me a hard time the entire time, so I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of ruining that rock. But anyway, I'm not the guy you want napping under pressure normally. That would be Jason or Curtis. This is some stuff I really like. This is some of my last recent stuff, I guess. But some of it's a year old or whatever. But anyway, I like a lot of it. This is after I decided I was gonna do things differently after I kind of got a clue a little bit. This is an example of something I made right after that where it's flat. It has only percussion flake scars on it and not too many of them. It's Texas-y more. And I still, you know, there's some stuff that's not right about it, but that's just an example. When I started getting a little better, that I could control the process a little better. There's some of my parallel flaking. But anyway, let's see, this stuff all just about, this is all Texas, just about. There's a couple of pieces of obsidian from up in Oregon. Went on a trip up there one time. This was kind of a beastly rock and it came out kind of cool. And I like to leave a little cortex on the tips and on the bases sometimes. On the ears. Well, I thought there was one on the ear here. Maybe that wasn't that one. Here's one where, and you say, well, this is stupid, but I left a little piece of cortex on the tip on this Clovis. Just sort of show I use the full length of the rock and that kind of stuff. This stuff was tough, man. This is Wyoming Moolite, but it was, it's raw. And it's sort of like, I guess it's agatized algae or something because that stuff is hard. That was a real pretty piece of High Ridge Burlington that I got from Marty. Marty gets some gorgeous rock. These two things are kind of cool. It's, whatchamacallit, Knife River. I think they're pretty, I like them. I like Knife River a lot. I've got one bucket of it, small pieces, and I've hid it under other stuff so I won't hit it. But I'd like to hit some of it, but I'm waiting until I get better, but I'm pushing 60, so I need to hurry if I'm going to get better. These four things, what happened was, kind of a cool story. I probably shouldn't tell it, but anyway. I sort of feel like I owe Marty in a lot of ways, different things. Anyway, so he called me at one point in time and wanted me to try and make something, the sloth layer type stuff, kind of pursuant to a discussion that had been going on in arrowheadology where stuff has been found that is believed to predate, you know, the Wells points of East Texas and be a paleo type thing. So anyway, there were very specific descriptions of what these points constituted. And so anyway, Marty was going to make a couple and send them in for a calendar and asked me if I would make, you know, one and just like right away and send it in and everything like that. Well, I'm like, crap. I've never done any replication work and I don't know what I'm doing. So I just read all the descriptions and sat there and drew out the stuff and tried to get it to scale and figure out exactly what, not what I was thinking it looked like, but what from the descriptions it ought to look like and stuff. And I didn't get it exactly right. But the other thing is, I ended up making four different colors of Edwards flint, and I didn't break any of them, and it didn't take me long to do them, and I thought they all looked kind of cool. So I just sent them all in, and these two got picked and were in the calendar. So anyway, but it was very precise, you know, grinding the stems and doing the serrations and leaving some of the percussion scars, but doing a little bit of intrusive pressure on there to, so you could still see the percussion scars, but you could also see the pressure and that kind of stuff. I don't know. It just, the parameters of it were tight enough for me that I imposed upon myself that it was some of the most difficult work I've done from a standpoint of trying to, you know, do something in a particular manner. This I did later, just goofing around. Anyway, so let's see. What else, if anything, should I show you before I shut this off? This was... I guess my first, and this actually wasn't my first attempt. Anyway, I was kind of proud of this when I made it because it's fully included both sides, and it really doesn't have an A or a B side. Both sides are pretty good looking, and it was a little bit dry material. It's Burlington, but I was really proud of myself for coming up with this and making it, and so I just took some of the flakes that from, you know, making it and put them in the little frame and everything like that. And I probably did that like a year and a half ago or something, I don't know. It wasn't a huge long time ago, but it just really came out better than it should have considering who made it. So I liked it. And then I'll show you one more thing and shut up. Yesterday I was trying to help a guy who wants to nap abo and really hasn't napped at all. And so while I was sitting there helping him, I was demoing on this big piece of bad pedernales, and I hit it with hammerstones first, and I hit it with wood billet and reduced it down. Well, at some point he probably had about all of my instruction he could stand, which y'all ought to be able to relate to. And so he wanted to practice and work with what he'd learned and stuff. So he sat there hitting. So I just picked up the copper stuff and started hitting it more and made this blade out of it. And it's nothing special, but the reason I'm showing it to you is because it was like made yesterday and it was made from a bad rock. So whatever. Anyway, that's about it. And I've taken up 25 minutes of your time. So if you watch this long, I appreciate it. I'll try and come up with different stuff every time so I don't drive you crazy even though I talk too much. Bye for now, Fruits Crack.